After another ugly second-round exit for the Phoenix Suns, they've already been linked to Fred VanVleet becoming their future point guard. So we'll break down that report, including Masai, Ujiri, and Bobby Webster flying over to Europe to interview Sergio Scariolo for the Raptors head coaching position. And we might have another top candidate not available for the Toronto Raptors as the Bucks are looking for one of Toronto's top guys. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is the Suns being linked to Fred VanVleet in free agency. Now, the Phoenix Suns, obviously, they're a team that made a big splash at the trade deadline this year, acquiring Kevin Durant for a massive package. And last night, for people that haven't been watching the latest games NBA playoffs, they had an ugly loss to the Denver Nuggets, once again getting knocked out in the second round, despite giving up an insane amount of assets to acquire Kevin Durant. And that has led the Phoenix Suns to their future to be in question with their current core, as news has come out from Jake Fisher today saying that Chris Paul, he only has $15.8 million left guaranteed on his deal, and there are plenty of league-wide discussions going around surrounding Phoenix's options for moving the future Hall of Fame point guard. The Suns have already left rival teams with the impression that they were searching for a long-term replacement for Chris Paul before they pulled off that trade at the deadline, the blockbuster for Kevin Durant. League sources have told Yahoo Sports, and they've already been linked to league personnel to ball handlers from Fred VanVleet to Terry Rozier. So this is interesting, right? We just saw it happen last night. As said, the Phoenix Suns gave up a lot to sort of make a nice playoff run. Kevin Durant's pretty old. Chris Paul's an older guy. And CP3 could barely play. He could barely make it through one round of the playoffs. Got injured with that groin injury in the second round and obviously couldn't be their first team. While Cameron Payne played pretty well, he's not regarded as a true starting point guard in the league by most people that are watching the games, even though he played well in this playoffs. But Fred VanVleet is apparently a suitable option down there in Phoenix. And look at Fred VanVleet's stats. You know, as a player that's won an NBA championship, put up 19 points per game, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, you know, can shoot the three ball, do on paper, in theory, everything out there on the court, even though he had a down season this year. Seems like he'd be an interesting fit for the Phoenix Suns, given the fact he's an unrestricted free agent, and he has that playoff pedigree. He has that sort of, I don't know if to call it a relationship with Kevin Durant, but the mutual respect built up with a guy like KD. So they probably wouldn't have to trade anything to get him, given the fact he's an unrestricted free agent. It seems like they're a legitimate suitor to acquire Fred VanVleet. Now, this leads, what's going to happen with the Toronto Raptors if Fred VanVleet ends up leaving in free agency, whether it's to the Suns or another team? Because obviously, during the trade deadline this year, we heard that the teams like the Rockets or the Orlando Magic could be offering serious bags to acquire Fred VanVleet. What does this mean for the Toronto Raptors? And while I know a lot of people in our comment sections, a lot of people all over the place, aren't high on Fred VanVleet right now at this moment in time, we need a point guard going into next season, right? For all of Fred VanVleet's flaws, when he wasn't out there on the court and Jeff Doughton wasn't a mainstay on the roster, right? He was one of our two-way guys. We looked brutal. We looked desperate out there at the guard position, right? Sure, Malachi Flynn had some decent games every now and then, but he was given a proper opportunity midway through this year, and he just could not deliver on a consistent basis. Delano Banton had a hot start, just like he did in his rookie season, and then his lack of shooting, teams would just go to a 2-3 zone, his poor decision-making, he'd just make kind of erratic drives, and you know, he didn't prove himself last season as being a fully capable NBA ball handler at this point. So, you know, Will Barton, we acquired at the NBA's buyout deadline, whatever you want to call it, he was not effective for this Raptors team, so those are our backup point guards. We didn't have an effective backup. So with Fred VanVleet gone, we have a massive gaping hole to fill. You know, if Fred VanVleet's not on the roster, maybe a new coach would be more interested in running Scotty Barnes to the point guard position. So we'll see who's what coaching staff, what they say when they're eventually brought on. I'd imagine that would be before the NBA draft or the trade, or what's it called, NBA free agency. So some decisions will have to be made if Fred VanVleet is gone, but let me know if you guys would like to see the Raptors bring Fred VanVleet back, or if he's going, which team would you like to see Fred VanVleet on? But next thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors bringing back Sergio Scariolo. There should be a question mark at the end of that little prompt there. This hasn't officially happened by any means, but the Toronto Raptors, their wide breadth of coaching search, you know, their massive search for next NBA coach, it's expanding to Europe now. As news came out today that the Toronto Raptors have traveled to Bologna to interview Sergio Scariolo, who, as reported by Il Carlino, I don't want to, I can't speak Spanish whatsoever, and confirmed by reporters over there in Europe. The meeting took place Thursday, May 11th at the Majestic Hotel, where the franchise's head Masai Ujiri and general manager Bobby Webster were in attendance. So they're flying over to Europe, flying over to Spain, I believe Bologna's in Spain, right, to go over there and interview Sergio. So it's not a Zoom meeting. We're not getting a little minor inquiry. They properly flew out there across an ocean to interview former Raptors assistant coach. Now, Sergio was highly regarded during his tenure with the Raptors, right? A lot of people had high praise for him within the organization, and he's a very, he has a lot of credentials. He has a big resume as a coaching in the NBA as well as in Europe. If you look at his awards and stuff, he won the Euro Cup in 2022. He's the Italian League champion in 1990. Right, his coaching career goes back 30 years. Right, Spanish League champion, Spanish Cup, Russian Cup winner, Super Cup. Like lots of wins for Sergio on this list, and then obviously won an NBA championship with the Toronto Raptors during 2019 as an assistant coach under Nick Nurse. So Sergio, you're not going to find a much better resume than Sergio. Obviously, there's a few guys, Frank Vogel, Mike Budenholzer, that won an NBA championship, the biggest prize of them all. But Sergio's a guy, he was well-liked. He always seemed insightful in those post-season or mid-game interviews that he had going on. Seemed like a likable character. Obviously, it's tough to gauge how someone will coach on the biggest of brightest stage as the number one guy in the NBA, but I don't know. Sergio's a guy that I would definitely be cool with bringing into this team to be the Raptors' next head coach. So let me know if you guys would like to see Sergio back. He coached the Toronto Raptors from 2018 to 2021, I believe. That should be listed. Not there. But, obviously went over back to Europe for the past couple seasons. But he's been here during the most highest of highs during the Toronto Raptors run. So could be a cool fit for the Toronto Raptors. Let me know if you guys like to see him as the next Raptors head coach. But the final thing we're discussing today is the Bucks interviewing Adrian Griffin. So, the Bucks also fired their championship-winning head coach this offseason, and I've speculated that Nick Nurse is the likely candidate to end up in Milwaukee, but apparently they're going after another Raptors coach, an assistant by Adrian Griffin. As news came out yesterday, got a little Woj bomb coming out saying that, the Milwaukee Bucks have received permission to interview Toronto Raptors top assistant Adrian Griffin for their coaching job. Griffin is also a candidate for the opening in Toronto. He started his coaching career with the Milwaukee Bucks. So Adrian Griffin has those connects to Milwaukee. If he's hired before the Raptors sort of finish the process, that would be pretty unfortunate. Obviously, Masai Ujiri's taking a sweet time figuring out who will be the Raptors' next head coach. Not like the Houston Rockets, where they immediately jumped into signing Ime Udoka. But I kind of like it. Test all your options, but if it means we're missing out on someone you think would be the best candidate, then that could be unfortunate. But I don't know. Let me know who you guys think you guys would like to see as the Raptors' next head coach. I mean, the list is getting very long in terms of even just big names, right? Sergio back, Adrian Griffin there, Earl Watson, who's coached in the NBA before, right? Becky Hammond, JJ Redick. Lots of people could potentially be in there for the Raptors' head coaching spot. So I'd like to know who you guys would like to see get the position, right? But you guys are best for making this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Lots of news coming over this off season. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.